off on Li Jiangtao, as we will all week long. If you're just joining us for the first time here in 2019 Season 1, we have set maps every week. So Li Jiangtao is going to be the control point map all week long. We just follow through in the process, I suppose. So it's a little bit different, a little bit exciting. I think it's definitely a positive change.
Yeah, so it looks like we've got Guzto in the roster as the off-tank here for Melbourne Mavericks today, which does put Winter into the DPS slot. It was listed as a sub, but maybe this is the actual core roster of Melbourne Mavericks. We'll find out. Gob getting put down quite low early on in the piece, so not a bad start here for Athletico as Melbourne Mavericks have to back away.
Yeah, going to unlock in a couple of seconds. Gusto, Forbles both quite low as well. Atletico sharing that damage maybe a little bit more evenly across their side of things. It's going to be Melbourne onto the point first, and Atletico seemingly happy just to let them take it. Yeah,
that's sometimes okay. If you can win this next fight pretty cleanly, it really isn't going to be too big of a problem for Atletico if they give up 10 or 15% right here and now. Trouble is, Gob's almost up to that Earth Shatter, so that could really be a spanner in the works for Atletico.
Up to 99 there, is 100% ready to go. Goes through with the charge right into the line as well. Still holding on for now, but he will go down. Defield going to be one picking up that kill. Melbourne going to start falling apart here on the point. Going to get up to about 30% before Atletico are able to start swinging it back in their favour. But to be fair, Fluoro doing a pretty good job. A few extra percentage points on the board. Melbourne looking to me like they're starting to stack up a couple of ultimates as well. But by the time they get back, Ford's going to have his Earth Shatter ready. Yeah,
not too bad for Atletico there. I mean, obviously Melbourne Mavericks didn't have the opportunity to really use any of those ultimates. The rally coming out for Defield providing enough sustain for Atletico to kind of just bash their way through Melbourne Mavericks there. But you're right, Melbourne Mavericks, they do have a lot of ultimates here, so this really isn't necessarily going to be a terrible fight for them coming out here. Grab, though, from Atar is good.
Yeah, Self-Destruct coming down on top. Down barrier comes through. No one goes down for now. Earth Shatter used by Gob. Bobbles uses the trance. Fort uses his ultimate as well. Still everyone alive other than Nami. Gusto going to get demec'd. Atletico going to pick up this fight. They're now going to find themselves in the lead.
Yeah, definitely looking like a solid roster right now. And again, they're doing what they need to be doing. When they have that advantage there, they're pushing that advantage further forward. They're fighting on their own terms. They're really not letting Melbourne Mavericks start any of these fights off. It's always Atletico that are on the front foot, and Melbourne Mavericks right now having to play reactively. But this time, Melbourne Mavericks do have the ultimate advantage. They have got that grab where Atletico do not.
Yeah, looking for a good grab. A very early trance coming out from Aki. No chance of him going down before that is used. Still holding on is Nami here with his Graviton Surge, but with Gob going down, the team will fall back.
I mean, smart for Nami to hold on to the Grab Surge there straight away. As soon as Melbourne Mavericks make their way into that fight, Winter gets picked off by D-Field on Brig action. But if Nami would have thrown the Grab Surge in there, there was obviously the sound barrier still available, not to mention the fact that Aki had actually already put the Transcendence down. So I don't think that would have been the right decision. Now at least gives Melbourne Mavericks another opportunity here to try and get the self-destruct combo once again.
Well, they need to win the next fight. Atletico already up to 85%. Grabs comes through and will catch a number of players out. Evy's going to pop the sound barrier. That should keep them alive. Everyone's still going strong. Ada quite low. Ford's going to be low as well. Gob about to be picked up, but it's Four who goes down first. Atar and Sol with ultimates still available once this trance goes down. Potential here for a big self-destruct.
No reason to throw out the Graviton Surge for Atar. I thought for a moment they were actually going to be able to hold it there, Atletico, but just as Atar comes up on that Graviton Surge, Four and D-Field do go down. So it was kind of a matter of timing, a matter of seconds really, that Melbourne Mavericks were able to bring that one in their favour by the skin of their teeth. Had that lasted another couple of seconds with all those 6 players alive, you definitely would have seen some ultimates thrown out by Atletico. Doesn't really matter too much for them though.
Lurking, great lurk in the back line, throws it through, grab into the middle, self-destruct. Not even know what they picked up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They should be able to find the point. And when they find the point, they'll find the round.
Yeah, very nice grab out from Atar, just catching off Nami. And then Gob sort of also gets a little isolated there as he got booped away from the rest of his teammates. And he's an easy target to focus down. So pretty solid stuff out from Atletico. I mean, not particularly surprising, at least in my mind, to see them start off with a pretty good first round. I did pick them to be the ones that might come out with a victory here today, Ben, even though we didn't necessarily go through with predictions. But
it did kind of feel from the start, right, that this lineup's looking pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've got a lot of experience on this Atletico roster. You've got a lot of firepower on this roster as well. I think with Aki and Atar being some players that you can really look to step up and have some pretty impressive individual performances. I mean, obviously, you would look to that from D-Field as well as one of the DPS players, but he's on Brigitte, so you're not necessarily going to get that same sense out of your Brigitte as you might be able to get out of, for example, your Xayah, or even, I guess, not necessarily so much in this meta, but we know that Zenyatta can have a big impact individually as well if the aim's on point. When you look across to Melbourne Mavericks, you don't really get that same sense out of those individuals. I guess we'll have to see how Nami and how Winter go, but, you know, we had a lot of hype around Winter heading into Season 2, even into Season 3 to an extent, and I don't think he's necessarily been able to reach those super high heights that some of the Tier 1 DPS players have. Whether that's because he's been on weaker teams and hasn't been able to flourish as much, or whether that's because of him as an individual not maybe reaching the expectations that the community has put upon him. Those are questions that, you know, I don't necessarily know the answers to. And obviously Nami is quite an unknown quantity at this point. We haven't really seen that particular player in Contenders outside of a sub position. I don't think that there's actually been any games where they've played. So again, we have to see how that's going to all turn out here for Melbourne Mavericks.
Well, we're going to push on out Melbourne. Going to be looking to pick up at least this round to keep themselves going here on Lijiang Tower. They certainly don't want to be losing all of their maps up against a team like Athletico. If you're sitting in the middle of the field, theoretically coming into the season, you know, you don't want to be going down 4-0. So we're going to be looking for Melbourne just to pick this up a little bit. Gob going down to start things off certainly won't help the matter. The rest of the team, we're going to see if they continue to fight or fall back. It's kind of hard to get out of here now once they're all where they are. But the longer this fight goes, we'll see.
Well, the longer this fight goes, the more favourable this entire round is actually going to be for Athletico. As soon as you lose Gob there as Melbourne Mavericks, you want to be backing away because that's an unwinnable fight. But the fact that that fight progresses on so long, so many heals go over to the Melbourne Mavericks players, look how much ultimate charge that actually feeds over to Athletico. That's actually not a great situation now for Melbourne Mavericks heading into this next couple of fights, because Athletico are going to just be able to rotate through their ults. The Graviton Surge is going to be up just before this fight does start. ATAR probably can use that, and then for the next fight, Earth Shatter, Melbourne Mavericks are in a real spot of bother right now.
Yeah, definitely not prime position. They're going to be looking, I suppose, maybe to see a couple of drive pushes come here and save up their ultimates. They don't want to throw too much out. ATAR, on the other hand, going to throw out his ulti to start things off. You did see God, Baubles, Fluro, Winter all popping theirs. Melbourne Mavericks really trying to make something of this fight. I guess at least for now, it's relatively even, other than, of course, Evie there sitting on that sound barrier. And, well, sound barrier has the potential to win the next fight.
It absolutely does, particularly because Melbourne Mavericks don't have a counteracting defensive support ult for themselves. They pretty much used 3 support ults in that last fight, and now going into this, it's all on Evie with that sound barrier.
Sound barrier will come through, but 4 and D-Field both go down. The Melbourne Mavericks somehow managed to turn this around. Even though they threw everything they had to that first fight, they still managed to come out on top.
Well, the good news is for Melbourne Mavericks that they have been able to flip it over. They had the Graviton Surge and the Self-Destruct up at the perfect time, when really owning Evie with that sound barrier, it wasn't going to be enough to hold through all of that damage that Melbourne Mavericks would be able to throw at them. But in that last fight, ATAR's actually charged up another Graviton Surge, so Athletico are just going to come back in here with a vengeance.
D-Field will catch out Fluro. Gob throws out the Earth Shatter, catches a large portion of Athletico. Can they follow it up with more? You see the grab comes through, might settle things down just a little bit. Baubles, Winter, both using their ultimates as well, as are Aki and D-Field. So it's a 2 for 2 there in terms of, I guess, support ultimates to push through. But in the end, Athletico will find the kills they need. They should be able to push back onto the point and recapture it about 45%.
Yeah, man, ATAR's an absolute machine right now on that Xayah. It was a great Graviton Surge. Catches a few of them off guard, forces the Transcendence, and then Winter doesn't quite get out of his poor position quickly enough, and he was sort of running away toward Melbourne Mavericks as Athletico was chasing them. He was in the middle of that Athletico pack and was an easy pick-off for them. ATAR's up to 54% of the grab once again, so he's probably going to get even another one before this map is over, and it certainly, to me right now, looks like this map is going to be over here and now, Ben. 2-0 definitely on the cards right now for Athletico.
See what Fluro can do here with this sound barrier. Ball looking for a bigger Earth Shatter. ATAR ready to go as well. Sound barrier will come out. Earth Shatter used, but they'll see all of Melbourne caught up there in a big grab as well coming out from ATAR. 4, 1, 2, 3. 3 big picks, and we're going to see that 100% tick over in just 1 second. That'll be Athletico 2-0 here up against Melbourne Mavericks on Lijiang Tower.
Yeah, ATAR certainly putting his best foot forward when it comes to the Zaya right now. Going to have to keep an eye on him throughout the rest of this series and definitely throughout the rest of this season. I mean, there's obviously a lot of talk about Hust and his Zaya and Signed and his Zaya, but looking at ATAR right now, he is absolutely chopping Melbourne Mavericks at the moment. So it's definitely up there. At least, you know, it's hard to say off just one King of the Hill match, one control match, but definitely impressive stuff in what is now his first match back in Overwatch Contenders. It's been a good start for ATAR. It's been a great start for Athletico as well. I mean, I've been talking, I think, a lot about ATAR, but I think across the board they didn't really.
You're a fanboy, aren't you?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say that necessarily, but
big fanboy.
Definitely a good start there for Athletico.
Yeah.
I think that across the board there wasn't really too many issues that you would have immediately noticed. I mean, internally, of course, they'd be thinking, okay, maybe we made a mistake here and here and here, but you still come out of it with a 2-0 victory there on Lijiang Tower, so it's a really good start. I mean, for being able to have a pretty good matchup against Gob, who is one of the more experienced and more prestigious main tank players within the region here, also a good sign. And I think for Melbourne Mavericks, that's something that they need to be really aware of here, because on their roster, Gob is probably the strongest player individually, and also being the main tank, you need to look at that particular player in the GOATS composition to be the driving force. And I think Gob at the moment is definitely struggling. He needs a bit of a backup. He's going down early in a lot of these fights. So either he's out of position, or the team's not giving him the heals or the protection or the bubbles that he needs. Whatever the case may be, I think you need to put some resources.
Right? You can't expect to win a map if your Reinhardt's going down first more than 50% of the time.
And I think Gob is definitely one of those players that can have star performances if he needs to.
We've seen it in the past.
Put those resources into Gob here as this Melbourne Mavericks roster, and hopefully he's going to be able to pay dividends back towards you.
Night market, particularly impressive there for Athletico. Melbourne, to be fair, the second fight looked okay on the second round. For me, it was, we didn't expect them to be able to win that. So maybe some good choices coming out from them there. They swung it back across, but they're not consistently winning the fights, at least not so far today. Yeah,
exactly. I think Athletico just looking a little bit stronger individually. Their ults are coming up a little bit quicker. They're getting more value out of their ultimates. And for Melbourne Mavericks there, to even win that fight, Ben, they had to use their 3 support ults. We saw Rally, we saw Sound Barrier, and we saw Transcendence, which traditionally you wouldn't want to use even 2 of them at the same time, but we had all 3 at the same time, which, okay, sure, they win the fight, but what does that leave them for the next couple of fights? And that meant basically nothing. Obviously, Eichenwald, the next map coming out here, so we may get to see a little bit of a variation in the team compositions coming into at least the first point, in toward point A. Maybe on the defense, you might like to see something like a Farah Mercy. To be fair, you could run it on the attack as well. There's a chance for the Widowmaker to come out here, although quite unlikely in this meta. More likely to see
GOATs again.
More likely to see McCree, if anything else, which is something that Huss was running yesterday.
We saw it earlier,
and we know that Winter's quite adept on the McCree, although I think in this Melbourne Mavericks roster, he's playing projectile DPS, or I guess in this sense, Brigitte. Nami's actually playing the hit scan DPS, so if anyone maybe is going to swap off, it could well be Nami. But we'll see whether or not there are actually going to be any change-ups. Generally speaking, we don't expect them, but it's always nice to theorize as to what we might end up seeing.
Look, it's like it's fantasizing about something exciting that might occur when you really know the day's just going to be pretty stock standard. Though, D-Field, do it. More than welcome. I'd love to see it.
Quite certain that he won't.
Do it. I'll take this as well.
I would take this, yeah. I think this is actually a more reasonable potential chance of actually being played. We know D-Field does like the Sombra.
And of course, ATAR and Eevee there with the pharmacy. So with nothing, Melbourne doesn't really have anything to deal with this Farah at the moment. So maybe ATAR's going to be able to come out here and, maybe Athletico will be able to push through quite quickly on the first point.
Well, definitely puts a lot of pressure onto 4Balls, getting the Discord orbs onto the Farah Mercy, hitting a couple of the orbs of his left click, regular left click, and then obviously the follow-up is going to be required.
Yeah, look at this. Melbourne going to be forced back now onto the point. 30 seconds down. Still plenty of time to go here for Athletico. Fluoro will get picked up. ATAR finds another. That's Winter and Melbourne. This defense starting to fall down. Again, it's a little bit unfortunate. Perhaps, if you don't have a counter to that Farah almost immediately, it's a bit late to swap across when you're on defense.
Yeah, well, ATAR just making it look way too easy right now for Athletico. they just didn't quite manage to deal with ATAR early enough.
Yeah.
Nami has immediately swapped over onto the McCree. Now, I wonder if this is going to be a bit of a mind game from Athletico, because typically what you do see is at this point of the game, the Pharah actually will swap back off onto, I mean, in seasons past, something like a Widow here into phase B of the map.
Imagine D-Field with ATAR here. This could be a big play. Yeah,
certainly, and they're all bunched up as well. ATAR just not quite in the position yet, so D-Field going to hold off for the moment. Definitely sneaky suspicions that D-Field is hanging around here. As you can see, Winter spamming away with that left click, but EMP's out.
EMP comes through.
It doesn't get 4 balls.
No, it doesn't really hit who it needs to. ATAR's going to come out with the barrage anyway, looking at least for one. Finds Gob and Gusto's mech. That's more than enough to get this fight going in Atletico's favour. Of course, they didn't want to start that fight too early. Obviously waiting for ATAR to get in position, as you said, waiting for the payload to get through the door as well. If you win the fight too early, by the time you come back, your opponents are back and the payload hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah. So, well, that was super easy for Athletico. At the end of the day, I mean, you throw your EMP out and you throw your Rocket Barrage out, and there's not a whole lot that Melbourne Mavericks could do about that, particularly if Gusto was hit by the EMP. You really need the defense matrix to deal with the Rocket Barrage. Still ATAR deciding not to swap off. He's definitely having success, so you can't question that.
Yeah.
Here comes the re-engage again from Melbourne Mavericks.
Zol up on the high ground, as is 4-4, now going to pop the Primal Rage. Zol still has that self-destruct. The payload continuing to move. Self-destruct will come through. Looking to find a kill, not going to find anyone. Evie down though, Gob, Winter both finding picks there. So maybe Jordan, maybe this is Melbourne's chance to stop the payload. Yeah, Aki
just caught out a little bit there and had to get the back up from Evie, which also put Evie in danger. So Melbourne Mavericks have finally figured out what they need to do here against this Athletico roster, and that's to put pressure onto the Ana player, who doesn't realistically have much of a way to help herself out. You know, I wonder if this is going to prompt the change from Athletico at all. Doesn't look like it will. But this dive-oriented comp from Melbourne Mavericks with Gob and Gusto not having too much success, albeit in that last fight, obviously. But Athletico coming up on the big ultimates once again, so they do expect that this fight is going to go a little bit better for them. Well, that was at least the first fight win. Deadeye going to get popped, waiting to see whether we find any picks from there. Nami, unfortunately, not going to be able to find anything with it, but Gusto finds 4, and this fight potentially, again, going to go Melbourne's way. So that's 2 from 2 fight wins in a row. Will Athletico change it up? You can see they're starting to stack ultimates. Perhaps they'll wait for that. Yeah, once again, a lot of pressure being put onto Aki there, and it's not like Aki's going down or anything like that. He's actually surviving through the fights late, but the fact that he's not able to put out the heals is obviously a big deficit, and that's why you see someone like 4 going down really early in that fight. But as you say, no ults used. Here comes an EMP, of course, from D-Field, and 4 balls, there's no chance. Yeah, a very aggressive hold from Melbourne will unfortunately not work out from that EMP. Plus the barrage coming out from ATAR. Going to be the end of the story. They'll have to make their way back to the payload. Yeah, the benefit though is, Ben, that was such a forward hold that it does cost both of those big ultimates for Athletico just to get back to where they were initially. They're back to square one. Melbourne Mavericks haven't lost too much off that. If they can get back out of the castle, okay. They are still going to have a fighting chance. They've got another decent fight as well. It's not like it's necessarily going to be right on the point. It's going to really depend how Athletico holds at the forward. Point 4, going to have that Primal Rage. Almost has to pop it straight away. Self-destruct's being used. Nami goes down. That leaves ATAR in a pretty good position as well. The payload has stopped on the bridge, but that was because everyone here from Athletico was fighting elsewhere. The fight will go in Atletico's favour and should get the bit of a move on now. Yeah, I don't know, maybe won't quite be enough to get all the way through. It depends what Melbourne Mavericks want to do as far as a recontest is. Fluoro should be able to get here, but I don't know that they're actually going to be able to do a whole lot about it. He does have the beat drop, so if his team gets out, might be okay, but Fluoro down now, I don't think that there's too much of a chance for Melbourne Mavericks to hold on. Deadeye used onto Evie there from Nami. That's a reasonable pick. Plus, maybe you won't see the McCree used once we get into the confined spaces if ATAR does end up swapping off. And this fight win does go across to Melbourne, managing to hold just in the nick of time. And the thing for me here is that Fluoro's still there with the beat drop. Yeah, exactly. That really shouldn't have gone that way, I don't think. Athletico, they did lose Evie early on in that fight. A nice Deadeye from Nami, and then obviously ATAR not being able to get anything done with the Rocket Barrage, which has been contrary to the current trend. So big change up coming out for Athletico now as they recognize they're just going to go back onto the GOATS comp here and ensure that they cap up point B and put themselves in a good spot heading into phase C. Yeah, that's certainly what Athletico need to do, but 4's going to go down to Gusto. Nami looking to try and get this grab up by the next fight. I don't know if it's going to be possible at the moment, but being very aggressive here, getting a lot of charge now up to 70, doing not too poorly at all, to be perfectly honest. Nami sitting here
on fire and on 90% energy.
And this is where fight losses become really, really painful for Athletico, because they have such a long run back to the point that it's costing them 20 or 30 seconds to even get back to the fight. Melbourne Mavericks have pretty much got all their ultimates with the exception of Gob. Atletico, this is going to be a tough one for sure.
Ada trying to push through, potentially not going to see a grab here from Atletico. Now so many ultimates on the side of Melbourne. Self-destruct comes through, transfused by them as well. Looking for some picks. Gusto finds both Atar and Evie. Potentially the end of this fight. Atletico doing what they can. Their run back is so long, it won't even matter. Melbourne picking up a number of fight wins in a row. I think they lost only one in the middle there once we got onto the second phase here on Icon Bolden. Very impressive out from Melbourne. Jordan, should Atletico have swapped earlier?
It's a difficult question to answer, Ben. I mean, yes, I guess, because this hasn't worked out. It would be the easy way to say it. Realistically, I didn't mind what Atletico was trying to do, and it was quite obvious that when they did have the ultimates available on those particular characters they were running, the Sombra and the Pharah, they were able to get work done. Trouble was that they weren't able to get work done where they needed to get work done. If they were able to have those ultimates on the bridge fights, then definitely they would have finished off point B pretty quickly. They could have swapped off onto Goats, headed into phase C, and managed to, with a fairly decent time, to probably charge up their ultimate again. So I don't think it was necessarily an incorrect decision from Melbourne Mavericks, but it was nicely played from, from Athletico. Nicely played from Melbourne Mavericks, with particularly that forward hold, which again forced D-Field and Atar into using their ultimates really early on in the fight, just to get back to the payload, not even necessarily to push the payload. I think that's where it really came unstuck a little bit for Athletico. So it's a defendable target for Athletico, that's for certain, but Melbourne Mavericks have also set themselves a very reasonable goal with being able to defend against it before even getting into point B. So what we do end up seeing from Athletico, by the looks of things, at least on the defensive side, is once more this Sombra-Pharah composition. My question is, again, that really leaves Aki a little bit in a difficult position here if he does get dove upon. But for Melbourne Mavericks, they're not running the dive comp. They're running, obviously, a little bit more of the standard goats. I say dive comp. I mean dive goats, really. Winston goats. But they're running standard goats here with, obviously, the Reinhardt. Nami will have a bit of a peek on the Widowmaker, maybe expecting that Pharah, which makes sense.
Which is there, yeah. And obviously much easier to deal with, Jordan, when you are on the attack. And you can change off should you need to. There's one hit, looking for the second. Doesn't get the pick they need. Swaps off across here to McCree. And going to be a little bit more effective at close range with everyone else as well. Melbourne struggled to defend Objective A, but now they're on attack.
And you can see the change-up as well for Melbourne Mavericks is that they've got the Winston as well. So they recognize that the Reinhardt is really going to struggle against the Pharah and the Sombra. And so the swap goes over onto Winston, which again is going to put a little bit more pressure on the back line of Athletico and make Melbourne Mavericks a little more mobile. Well,
they certainly managed to push through for now, looking to find some picks. Unfortunately, it's Nami who goes down first. Nice work from D-Field, who's quite low on HP, but does manage to stay alive. The question is, do Melbourne fall back? Yes, they will. They're going to, of course, need some way to deal with this Pharah before they continue the fight.
And that's going to be just a case of keeping Nami alive longer in these fights. I mean, inevitably, the McCree is going to be able to put some damage in that will be able to be followed up by Gusto on the Diva. But if you go down immediately in the fight, there's not much of a chance, and that's why Atar's going to try and put as much pressure onto Nami as possible. Yeah,
taking a little bit of a while there for Atar to actually take any damage. The barrage now available again. No one from Melbourne really dealing with this Pharah. Trans will come through. Perhaps a little bit too late. They're trying to make the most of it, but Atar pops the Q, finds two, and that should be the end of the fight.
Yeah, it's a 2-for-1 though, and Gob with the Primal Rage does actually manage to pick off Evie. So right now, I think this sort of slightly favors Melbourne Mavericks, who do have a bit of a better of a chance actually of getting back to this point a little quicker because they died a little bit earlier. Gob's still in the mix there. This is actually trouble for Athletico.
Yeah, I didn't see the Gob Primal Rage, and to be honest, I'm not sure if Athletico did, because he was slapped and then woken by the Baby Diva, so that's certainly less than ideal. Self-destruct in combination with the EMP. Aki going to get res, Gusto D-mech'd, and it looks maybe like Melbourne starting to fall back. Baubles finds a pick, as does Nami. This could be big. Now they've got the advantage. Evie has to fall back. D-Field here, one of the last hopes right now for Atletico, will go down as well. And Melbourne should be able to secure Objective A. The payload should start moving.
Yeah, a little delay there for Melbourne Mavericks. It was a nice EMP actually from D-Field to cancel the Deadeye of Nami, but in the end it doesn't really make too much of a difference. And you can see the problem that Nami is actually posing not only for the Pharah but also for the Winston there, as 4 jumps straight in, gets hit by a flashbang, right click to death. Obviously, we are on the patch with McCree is very, very deadly with that right click. So, not a bad start for Melbourne Mavericks. Transcendence out very aggressively.
Yeah, super aggressive Trans coming out here from Vorbles, trying to keep the team alive. Finds 2 picks as well. So, not a bad Trans as all. Zol going to get DMEC. Goes down. Gob finds Aki. The payload should it start moving. Not a bad fight win at all. Let's see how aggressive Melbourne are now. Do they want to hold forward? What are they going to do?
Certainly would like to hold forward if they can. They've used that Transcendence just to get through the major choke point, at least one of the major choke points fairly comfortably. It doesn't cost them any other ults. And Vorbles, to be fair, built 44% up in the last fight as well, so it's not like they've lost a whole lot here. Athletico already being pressured for the high ground as well, 4 going down low.
Yeah, Melbourne fighting this one 6v5, Athletico with the advantage for now. But
That's
Gusto,
perfect.
who's been sitting on the payload, decides to throw one in from long range. Big 3-point hitting up D-Field and ATAR.
Yes.
Great work.
It's such a difficult combo to deal with for the main tank there for 4. Like, he's in 2 minds. What do I do? Do I block the self-destruct or do I block the shatter? And either way, you're kind of doomed if you do, doomed if you don't.
Yeah.
And eventually all of Athletico do go down to the Graviton Surge. And now, they've really got only one fight. Every single fight now is going to potentially be the last one for Athletico. They need to win every single one from now. Lucky thing is, they didn't use any ults in the last fight, or not many. So they can defend here.
Going to be looking for a huge ulti coming out from Gob, potentially, if they can get to it. Self-destruct in the middle, won't find any picks. Are Athletico going to throw everything into the fight? The answer is yes. As do Melbourne. That's a big Earth Shatter coming out from them. Vorbles actually finding 2. Big work coming out from Sport. 3 from Vorbles. Gob finally goes down. The payload does not need to go far at all. Vorbles finds a 4th. This is insane.
Yeah, this is exactly what we expect out of a player like Vorbles, being able to do that damage. I'll talk about it in a little bit because I think this might be the end of the map right now. Melbourne Mavericks putting in so much work individually at the moment. Nami with that armor below the shield is going to be such a big threat. Athletico just can't put the damage out that they need. It's just a matter of time.
Wow.
Melbourne Mavericks will win map 2, and Ben, that last fight came off some massive individual plays there for Melbourne Mavericks. I mean, we see the Earth Shatter get cancelled by Winter with the shield bash, so 4 doesn't get an Earth Shatter down, and then obviously the Earth Shatter comes across from Gob as well, and that kind of just absolutely wrecks Athletico at that point. So a lot of individual players stepping up there. You look at going into that fight, the amount of ultimates on both sides, and who should win that fight based on that. And it definitely should have been a good hold from Athletico. But
to me, I was like, why are Melbourne throwing their ultimates into this? They only need to win one fight here. Surely Athletico wins this battle, but they don't.
Well, it would look like that on paper, right? Because there were so many extra ultimates there that Athletico should have had, and then they didn't really get the opportunity to either use them or they didn't have the value out of them that they needed when they did use them. So nice stuff from Melbourne Mavericks. It made life pretty easy for Vorbles, who was able to just sit at the back and lob some damage across with the Zenyatta. And again, you know, in a meta like this, you need to be seeing your Zenyatta do damage, particularly with those Discord orbs. So perfect stuff out from Melbourne Mavericks, and definitely showing a little bit better synergy here than they did on Control. I think Control was maybe a bit of an underperformance even based on what we're seeing here from Melbourne Mavericks, because it seemed like everything that they tried to do here on Eichenwald, at least particularly on the attack, was so perfectly coordinated that you kind of have to tip your hat to them. But whether
this is what we wanted to see, right? We thought these teams were closer perhaps than what we saw in the first round.
Yeah, but whether that's their standard level or whether they're overperforming here or they're underperforming on Lijiang Tao, that's something that we have yet to know. I mean, obviously, we've seen these players in Contenders before, but we haven't seen this roster in Contenders before. So, a lot of questions to be answered. I'm still, I think, favouring Athletico. Yeah. They tried to change things up a little bit there. They went a little bit off meta. They didn't necessarily play GOATs as much as they could have.
They forced the swap off GOATs by Melbourne, and then they didn't swap back across. They held onto that team comp for so long with the Fire, and look, to be fair, it looked like it was working until it didn't. Yeah,
exactly. And I want to see what more Athletico can bring for us here. They changed up their roster a little bit. It works for a bit, but I'd like to see how their GOATs versus GOATs matchup is going to go, because I think that's what on Lijiang Tower really ended up being quite a solid victory for Athletico.
Well, it's one apiece here between Athletico and the Melbourne Mavericks. We'll take a very quick break. When we come back, more Overwatch Contenders Australia.